My anger now is about how people's worlds have become so tight and so banal and so limited, where they're just kind of disappearing into their phones, and their world is just sort of programmed for them by Facebook or social media, and they're sort of told what they're supposed to think, and they're kind of programmed. And at the same time, what science is discovering about the universe and about where we live and about who we are is just so insanely mind-blowing. It's just absolutely it's sublime, in my opinion. And yet so many people are just living like as if they're sleepwalking, as if that, I talk in one chapter about the unlikeliness of any of us being alive, any of us actually being here right now on Earth, and how just to be who we are, the odds against it are like 8 trillion to 1. I mean, even more than that. But people aren't thinking about this. They're not aware of the awesomeness of just the fact of being alive, of the cosmos as it evolved, as things on Earth evolve the way they are. And so I'm kind of angry a little bit about how people are just not aware of this.
That anger, again, that's, one of the things I did as a clinician is to help people find their purpose, was to help them find out what they're angry about. It's like, well, what's your problem? You say that to someone, what's your problem? But actually you want to know. It's like, because if you have a problem, then, because there's lots of things you could be bothered about, but you're not bothered about by all of them.
Right.
There's something that stands out for you as, something that violates your sense of moral propriety, let's say. That's your problem. You think, well, I don't want to have a problem. It's, yes, you do. You want to have your problem, and then you want to go try to solve it. And if you're looking for meaning in your life, it's like, well, what bugs you? Well, I'm annoyed at this and that. And it's pretty naive and low resolution and formulaic to begin with, but you could zero right in on that, and then you find the purpose of your life. And that's it. That's in that anger. It's in that anger, at least to some degree.
Yeah. And as I said, I can't write without it. I don't know why. Every day I have to feel a little bit of pinch of it, or like a little bit of edge of that knife in me. And sometimes,
well, you have to be, that's right. I mean, I find when I'm sitting down to write a chapter, because it's hard to sit down and write a chapter. It's a lot of work, man. And, writers always whine about that, but it's hard to do. It's as hard as clinical work, which is the hardest work I ever did. And so, but I have to be, it's like, there has to be a reason for this, to get me going to do it. It has to be important. And that means it has to be dealing with something weighty. And if it's weighty, it's going to call out of you all of your emotional responses, including certainly including anger. Certainly that's a tremendous form of energy.
Well, I don't know if you have the same experience, but I read so many books for my research, et cetera, and that's the main thing that I fault them with. There's no kind of energy behind it. There's no human behind it. There's no voice that's kind of screaming out why they have to say this.
Screaming out is exactly right. That's a great book, Screams, like Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago. That's like 3,000 pages of screaming anger. It's like you sustained screaming anger for 3,000 pages. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's like being caught in a windstorm reading that book.
Yeah.
And that's no wonder that greatness is terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of channeling the dark side in some ways. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that man brought down a totalitarian state, at least in part. It's like you have to have a lot of force, and you think that it's not going to be anger in part to push back against. That's all that kind of petty tyranny that you were talking about in its most, what would you say, most rigidified and universal form.